Welcome back. It's the 0 to 100 podcast. William Walker Jr. here. And as promised, as I said in part one, when I released the remainder of the conversation I had with my friends, I told you I was going to be back to follow it up with some Cowboys observations from OTAs this past week, as well as what appears to be the Cowboys actually operating differently, or it's not even necessarily them, the team itself, that's operating differently. It's just something that is like actually palpable for a lot of Cowboys fans as to what the Cowboys have been doing in this off season, that it feels incredibly different compared to previous off seasons. But let's get started with some of the OTA reactions that I've been seeing on the social media streets and Cowboys Twitter in particular. Um, the beat reporters, the guys that cover the team, have actually done a really great job. People like Nick Harris, Tommy Yarish, Patrick Nosey Walker have done a really good job in terms of keeping everybody up to date as to what has been going place during OTAs. OTAs are not, organized team activities. It's not the same as training camp, where you actually see the players in pads and they're actually putting in, like, you get to see what the playbook may look like or what Christian Parker's defense may look like. You do get to see like what some of the reactions are from some of the players that have been there. And I think the thing that is encouraging, especially for a lot of Cowboys fans, is, I mean, we're putting a lot of hope into Christian Parker and this new defensive scheme that he's going to bring about. The one good thing, and I've said this repeatedly before, and I know I said it last time when I was talking to Jr. on the podcast, with my hope or the reason for optimism for this Cowboys team is, yeah, Christian Parker's never called a defense before, but it's very difficult to imagine that this Cowboys defense could actually be worse than what they were the year before. Brian Broaddus and Vash Lombardi did a really great job on their podcast, where they actually broke down a couple episodes ago. They had broke down the rankings of defenses that have actually gotten worse after a really bad having a really bad defense. And so to be 32nd, it's hard to imagine that the Cowboys can actually get worse. If they were to go up to be the 25th worst defense, that's still not where anybody would want them to be, but that would be markedly better than where they were. So it's like I said last time, the dream for me is for them to break the top 20, like to break into the top 20. Like the ultimate dream would be a top 10 defense. Like you would love to have a top 10 defense to pair with this offense, but if they could just break within the top 20 to be above 20, whether it be like 17 or 18 would be great in terms of paired with this offense, if the offense can actually improve. So one of the things that CD Lamb had came out and said to ESPN when he was being interviewed, and Jane Slater, I believe, is the one who asked him what was his impression of Christian Parker's defense, and CD's response was that it was annoying. It was an annoying defense to go against, and go, so it presented challenges, and so that is very encouraging. I remember, like, before Schottenheimer came in and was taking over doing the offense as a head coach. One of the things that a lot of Cowboys fans used to remark or take note of with the offense is how everything appeared to be like work. It all looked like really hard work to move the ball. The Cowboys had a top-notch offense under Kellen Moore, under Mike McCarthy. It's not rare to see the Cowboys offense be successful or prolific. The thing is just how it looked. And especially like when they would come against really good defenses, how much of a struggle it was for them to maintain the status quo. Like last year, and Vash Lombardi has done a really good job of highlighting this. Like even when the Cowboys offense will go up against difficult defenses or opponents, they would still score over what that defense's average was of holding teams to. And so like when you see something like that, you feel confidence in this offense. And the thing that we noticed that Schottenheimer appeared to do with Schottenheimer and Clayton Adams um, was that the offense actually looked modern. It looked easy. It didn't look like everything was a struggle or hard to do. Like where they did leave meat on the bone or where they struggled was in the red zone. That was an issue, and there's been a number of Cowboys content creators that have highlighted that and shown what some of that is. And I think um, the thing with that is that the you kind of saw Schottenheimer kind of learning on the job, and I think in year two, he might have, hopefully taken from what he did in his first season as the head coach and offensive play caller, and try to make some smarter choices or better play calls once they get in the red zone. Like namely, like if you get to the within the five, actually give Javonte Williams a shot more than just one time to get in the end zone and to actually utilize that interior with Tyler Smith, Cooper Beebe, and Tyler Booker. So we'll see like what Christian Parker can actually do to the defense, and hopefully we'll be looking at it and being like, wow, this defense is actually difficult to play against. It's not easy. One of the things that I thought was interesting when I was listening to the Doing All Right podcast with Vash Lombardi and Brian Brodus was that Vach was pointing out that the Cowboys have ranked 12th in terms of pressures of the quarterback. Now they were very low in getting actual sacks, but they were getting pressure on the quarterback. And the thing that I do agree with Vach was that if the secondary wasn't as bad as it was, I do think that maybe they would have got home. I mean, there was too many times that you would see the Cowboys defense last year, and the closest defender to the wide receiver was like 15, 20 yards off the ball. Like it was like the receivers were wide open. It's not like if the quarterback had somebody breathing down his neck, all you had to do was throw it in 2 seconds or 3 seconds, and you were going to hit a wide open wide receiver because the nearest defender was like 15 yards off the ball. So it's just, I do think if Christian Parker can get them to, cut down on that, then again you can see some market improvement. And I think the other really encouraging thing that I was hearing coming out of the observations was veterans like Quentin Williams being impressed with Caleb Downs. Like everybody that was seeing Caleb Downs was impressed with what he was doing. So it's like he was one of the safeties that was out there running with the ones. Jalen Thompson kind of started off like not running with the ones that you would see Hooker and PJ Locke, the safety that came from Denver. And so it's going to be interesting to see what the actual starting rotation is going to be. But honestly, we don't know what that's going to be until camp. Deron Bland was not out there. He was running on the cords. Donovan Azaraku was on the cords. But Schottenheimer did come out and say that there was no fear of them not being ready for camp. Like they should all be available at the start of training camp, which is the important part. And so we'll get to see what it actually looks like then. And I guess like the other news that came out was that Tyler Guyton is in a position battle with Nate Thomas for the starting left tackle. And I'm encouraged by that because they're not just handing the job to Tyler Guyton because he was the first round pick. I just feel like, as much as we get on Terrence Steele on the right side, and in fact, I am in the camp of saying, why don't we see what, Tyler Guyton actually looks like on the right side, which was his natural position in college. I have fallen more so in that camp, but I will acknowledge that Terrence Steele is what he is. He's solid in the run game. He's a liability in pass coverage, but as people who break down film and are better at it than me, they've shown how Dak actually navigates the outside pressure very well. It's the interior pressure that he struggles with, and the Cowboys are pretty solid in the interior with Tyler Smith, Cooper Beebe, and Tyler Booker. So I'm I'm happy to see Nate Thomas actually compete for the starting job. I don't know if he's going to necessarily win it because again, when we, we briefly saw Nate Thomas in the starting lineup, it was great versus the Jets. He looked absolutely horrendous versus Carolina and the Cardinals. So it's you don't know necessarily how good he's actually going to be. So, but if he wins the job outright, then he earned the job, and I think that's what we'll be looking for. So let me get to this other topic, or where I was saying, is this a different type of Cowboys offseason? And the reason I'm even bringing this up, or I'm saying it, is because if especially like if you're heavy in the Cowboys Twitter or heavy in NFC East Twitter, where you see a lot of the fans of other teams in the NFC East, you can't help but notice that there has not been a lot of off the field drama or non-football related drama with the Cowboys this offseason. It's been almost eerily quiet, where there is nothing that you really can talk about with the Cowboys. And I don't think that's actually a bad thing. I mean, even with the Pickens situation, where he wasn't at voluntary OTAs. These are voluntary, so he has the option to not go. It's not mandatory. There was a famous quote from a Cowboys player, Darren Hambrick, where he's like, "What do voluntary mean?" So it's like what it means is that he doesn't have to show. Nobody was expecting him to show. That was another observation that I saw, that the wide receivers that were running with the ones, the 1, 2, 3 was CeeDee Lamb, Ryan Lloyd, and Marquez Valdez Scantling, who I forgot the Cowboys actually picked up in the offseason. So those were the 3 wide receivers that were running with the ones because Pickens wasn't there. But even with the Pickens situation, like I was saying, it doesn't feel contentious. Like I know that like everybody's like, oh, he's not, he doesn't want to play on the franchise tag. This is going to be a problem all year long. It just doesn't feel that way, because the Cowboys gave Pickens and his agent David Mulageta the opportunity to actually negotiate or try to see what his market value was, and no team wanted to step up and give the compensation of draft picks that they were going to have to give because of the type of tender that the Cowboys put on Pickens. And no one kind of came with the $40 million contract. And I know like a lot of Cowboys fans are freaking out after what Jackson Smith and Jigba got in Seattle and what Drake London got in Atlanta. But you know, more than likely, if Pickens puts in the same year that he did last year, which was all pro season, of course he's going to ask for like 40 million or 40 plus per year. That, especially because that's going to be the going rate for a number 1 wide receiver. If he establishes again, he's all pro number 1 wide receiver, it's within his right to try to get that money. However, the Cowboys do have all the leverage here. Like they could easily franchise tag him again, and that's going to be $30 million dollars a year is what the cap is going to be. I remember what the tag is going to be next season. And I have gone on record and stated that I sort of feel like this might be Pickens last year. Oh, you know, but it's like only because it just makes sense in terms of what the Cowboys may want to do, where they don't want to pay 2 wide receivers over $30 million on their roster. But I don't know. There is something where it kind of feels like quietly the Cowboys may be working on something. And again, that's just my opinion. I haven't heard anything or know anything. I am not an insider. But it does feel like there's not a lot of drama around this. Like they understand that, you know, Pickens has to prove it again. Like, unfortunately, like that's just it. That's just the case, and it's actually very beneficial to the Cowboys. Like Pickens just has to prove it again, because the league has spoken. They don't have to bid against themselves here. Like in the past, I will always say the Cowboys they wait too long, or they making the price go up, and they're bidding against themselves. They actually have all the leverage here, and again, if they don't want to pay him what other teams in the league are willing to pay him, then yeah, they can get draft compensation, and it would probably be a very high pick. Like uh, the draft show had pointed out when they had talked to other sources around the league, like what could the Cowboys get for Pickens if they decided to trade him for this past draft season, and the highest that the team said they would go is a second, and they were like, oh, I don't even know if I really want to do the second, and so it didn't make any sense. Like if he's an all-pro wide receiver. That's not in dispute. He had all-pro season. And so it just wouldn't make sense for the Cowboys to be like, yeah, let's give him up for a second. Like, who cares? Like, nobody cares about that. But if Pickens goes out and has an all-pro season again and another team comes and says, hey, we'll give you a first-round pick and we'll pay Pickens $40 million, okay. Like, then I can see them being willing to accept the first round pick for it, or even a first round pick, and probably more if that's what you want to do. Especially, so it just doesn't make sense. But I can see them possibly doing. But I can also see Pickens, who has had a really good time playing with CD, playing with Dak, saying to his agent, like, I don't have to be the highest paid wide receiver. I can just be comparable. If I get CD's deal, like we both make 35, or I make 36 or 37, or 38. I can see that as well. Or if I just make 32 because I love playing here in Dallas and I love playing with Dak and CD. Those are all things that could possibly happen. But I got a little bit off track there. It wasn't even supposed to be about Pickens. It's just the fact that when you look at the Eagles and you had all this drama with A.J. Brown, which everybody and their grandma knew A.J. Brown was going to get traded at the end of the season, especially where it looked like he was about to come to blows with the head coach, Nick Sirianni, during their playoff loss to the 49ers. Not that I blame him, because there's nobody in all of sports to me that has a more punchable face than Nick Sirianni. But you see the drama with that. And then now that he's been traded and he's being honest about what his experience was like with the Eagles and how frustrated he was, then you get all this speculation in terms of people saying like, oh, well, he was beefing with Jalen Hurts. Like he didn't invite Jalen Hurts to his wedding. And that's because he was cheating on his wife. And Jalen Hurts' wife or fiance at the time found out and told his wife or girlfriend. And then that's why they traded Hassan Reddick. Like all this crazy drama stuff that I will ordinarily see people talking about with the Cowboys, they're talking about with the Eagles. And I'm like loving it and enjoying it. And then you got the Giants quarterback, Jackson Smith and Jigba, going to a MAGA rally and introducing Trump, and rightfully so, black players on his team were pretty pissed off about that, which I don't blame them. And so it's, but again, it's just more drama. And it's, the Giants are bringing back Odell Beckham Jr. And you're like, that means that Malik Neighbors might not be ready at the start of the season. So the Cowboys might not have to face them. It's just, it's just all kind of crazy drama that's, circling all these other teams. And it's not circling the Cowboys. And it's just been really, really enjoyable to sit back and behold. Like for once, the Cowboys have had a nice, quiet off season in terms where the only things that people seem to be talking about them for are the football moves that they made. What? The Cowboys, they're not talking about like players doing crazy stuff or Jerry Jones doing something stupid or trying to bring some kind of headline, because as long as they're talking about the Cowboys, that's what it matters. But they're actually talking about, hey, the players they acquired in free agency, the draft picks that they actually, the players that they drafted, and how they're going to fit into the scheme. You're actually talking about football related things. Like, man, give me that. Like in terms of Cowboys operating differently, that's something that I'm happy to see. And so will it turn into or translate to them having a successful season this upcoming season? We'll see. I think it will. Again, I am an optimist when it comes to the Cowboys, even though, like I had said before, the last time they were in the playoffs and the way they lost, it was very damaging. But and it did put me in a position where I have to see it. But I do think there is a lot of reason to be very optimistic about what the Cowboys can possibly do this upcoming season. And the fact that things have been very football focused is really nice to see, and that is different. Like, with the way they operated this past free agency, didn't feel that different, especially in terms of the types of players that they went after. And they didn't do anything super major, but it does feel different in terms of there isn't a lot of craziness and there isn't a lot of drama that's surrounding the team. And that's a good thing. And it actually makes you feel even more encouraged about what this upcoming season could be. But we'll see. So that's what's going on in Cowboys today. And so next I'll be back to go over what have I been watching. You're listening to the 0 to 100 podcast.